we're, even if we're in two separate offices, it's still dual representation. So we have them corrected on an addendum.
Okay,
Buyer and seller understand that line, blah, 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 both buyer and seller should be checked. You know, it needs to be corrected on an addendum.
okay. So I will be putting that in the notes for that one,
Yes.
to make sure that they do that addendum to clear that up. All right, great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There's very few of the errors that can be corrected just by changing it on the contract. I mean, you can always go back and get initials on stuff, but really the only one that you can correct is whenever one of the agents leaves off their office information and stuff. They can go ahead and fill that in and then send that completed, you know, page or contract to all the parties, because it's not changing any of the terms, or it's not, I mean, it doesn't affect anything really that has to do with the buyer and seller. But agency, on the other hand, certainly does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question for our.
Yep. So how would you have answered your own question? I should have had you answer it first.
Oh, me? Oh, well, I wanted to make sure that that's how I suspected that we would deal with that, but I wanted to be 100% sure
Yeah.
that, because there are nuances between brokerages.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I was 100% right on that one.
But
So that's what
you
I'll
were
do.
right. All right. So we have a few on board. Does anyone have any questions they want to talk about? Anything that they're having an issue with on any of their contracts? Any of their new agents? Just kidding.
I'm new, and I have the issue with like the buyer forgot to sign the Green Valley addendum, things like that, and we have to go. We have at least a couple lines that we needed to correct, and then what we did is we just put it all in addendum. So it was hard because I didn't know what to do, like how to do an addendum, because it was my first time. So that was fun.
So who are you in training? Are you one of the agents in the productivity coaching?
Yes.
Okay. And you do know that you can reach out to Dan Caldwell anytime, right?
That's correct. But
Okay.
I hired Jill Walker as a TC, so she helped me a lot.
Okay. She's not an agent. She's licensed, but she's not an agent who has done sales. So I highly encourage you to speak with Dan. Jill is a transaction coordinator. She's not a productivity coach. Just so you're aware of that, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, she's smart and she knows stuff, but she's not been a selling agent. So it's real important that when you have questions about how to do things on a contract, that you talk to Dan or call the broker hotline.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. How about you, Doreen? Anything going on?
I don't have any questions at this point, no.
Okay. Well, we're going to see if how many people jump on. I'm going to throw one out there for you. Every once in a while, we get some really interesting calls. And I think that all of you probably go through similar issues and problems with clients. So here's one. And the names are changed to protect the innocent, right? So we had an agent who was all excited. She got a listing and they wanted to buy. So she listed their house. It sold right away. They found something they wanted to buy. Everything was going on great. The the sellers, our client, they closed on their home, so they were ready to close on their purchase, but somehow it got missed that they were not netting enough money from the sale to do the purchase. And the lender said, whoa, you don't have enough proceeds here for us to fund the loan. They'd gotten all the way to final approval. So what do you think was missed? What do you think would have helped this situation that our agent suddenly found herself in, with sellers having sold their home and now couldn't buy the new one? Does anybody have a guess as to what would have helped?
Well, Dan did, and he put it up in the chat.
Huh? Oh, I'm not looking at the chat.
Yeah, giving the answers away over there, Dan.
All the answers we need, anything are written down somewhere. You just got to go find them.
So running a cost sheet for both, the sale of the house and the purchase of their new one would have been a beginning step to letting them know how much they were going to net.
Exactly. Thank you, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a simple thing, but when we meet with a client, I mean, we can't get all caught up in the excitement of having this listing and future sale, without advising the client as to whether or not they're actually in a position to do what they want to do. So I was just blown away when this happened, but good news is somehow they scraped together the money from somewhere else, and the lender was satisfied with where it came from, and they actually closed. And we all went, whew, because it was a duel. So it wound up being okay, but it could have gone, really, really wrong. And anyway, so one of the things that, we want to emphasize, and I know that I'm sure that Dan teaches his productivity students this and everything, always do a cost sheet when you're first working with a seller or a buyer, because a lot of times they have no idea, the reality of what it costs to sell a home. And so it's our sellers particularly that you want to get that information to. So I just thought I'd share that little experience. It was one of those wow moments. So Wendy, you've done this before. You've talked to agents when you work with other companies. Do you have any interesting side notes to share?
Oh, I didn't know I was going to be sharing stories from the.
Hey, I didn't either.
I'd have to dig around in the memory banks for that. Again, it was interesting to me because again, the question, I have been at 2 other large brokerages in town, and the question came up about a BINSR again today, and it's the same question wherever I go, and how we use the BINSR, and keeping in mind that the BINSR is really used to ask for disapproved items. It's not a free-for-all to ask for price reductions or credits or things like that. So when you're in that place and your client wants you to go down that path, then reach out, whether it be to Dan or broker hotline, to talk about what you have to do. So in this case here, the one I heard about, thankfully they had some discussions before they put pen to paper, and they came to an agreement on a price reduction versus doing these, but the paperwork didn't show us that. So we had some questions around that. But yeah, always much better to have a discussion rather than put that on paper, because that's not what a BINSR's for. So.
Right. That is so true. And you're right. That comes up quite frequently. So we never get tired of that one. It keeps coming out. But yeah. And once again, it's about communication. Wouldn't you agree, Wendy? It's all about
yeah. Picking up that phone and having a conversation with the other agent before we commit things into writing, and we send it off, and now there's, you know, with a Binzer, it's one bite at the apple, and now we have to figure out how to fix that from a you know, backing it up kind of way. So much better to have the conversation up front and talk through it, talk through what everybody's goal is, because that's our point. Our goal is to get everybody, seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy, and make sure that we can get it contractually correct for them so that it all works out well in the end.
Right. That's the goal, to put the buyer and the seller together where it's a win-win for both.
Mhm.
All right. Good experience. Thank you for sharing that, Wendy. Anyone else have anything that they want to talk about? Larry, you're on there today. I don't see you, but I see that you're on here. Did you have anything to share or ask? He's being quiet. How about you, Dan? Is anything going on in your world?
No, I'm actually super excited to see a lot more newer agents getting into production. We sat down with 2 agents in the last couple of days that are getting new listings on the market, so it's pretty awesome. I love seeing the first deal an agent does is a listing. That sets precedent for their career, so that's awesome.
Yep.
I just want to keep hounding on the Binzer every chance we get it, and I'm sure all the agents on here that are in my group that are active hear about it all the time. The Binzer is not a place to bring up stuff you could see when you first walk through the house.
Yes, that is true.
And the one thing I keep harping on is that we're looking for major concerns with safety, structural, and mechanical defects that cannot be seen at the time of first offer. If you saw that it needed a new roof, you should have addressed it before you put the offer in. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the market, what other brokers are doing, but someone out there told them to just start filling out Binzers as full as you can and negotiate the sales price. No,
Oh,
absolutely not.
yeah, that's a pretty quick way to lose a seller as a negotiating partner, as a seller. Oh, yeah.
Especially in the current market that we're in, yeah.
That's a tricky part with our clients because they're so educated in everything that they do. They think the Binzer is a way to get things done. So for newer agents to try to navigate that can get tricky.
And I think it's on us to be hyper trained and focused on it so that we can help agents that are less educated as us in those transactions. Like I'm actually working a deal on one of my own sales that the other agent is a brand new agent and her mentor is teaching her incorrectly, which is great because it becomes a fast recruiting point for Keller Williams.
Okay, well, we'll do a sidebar later.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you right now. She reached out to me, sent me the Binzer. The buyer, accepted the property as is. Great. Binzer inspection period over, done with. 4 days later, I get an email from her. Hey, Dan, is your seller ever going to sign the Binzer and send it back? I was like, we don't need to. You guys accepted the property as is. She's like, oh, well, my mentor told me I needed it signed and returned. I was like, cool. Well, call your broker, ask them that question. But that's the situation. I'm like, all right, now I know what I'm dealing with.
Yep.
So, and she just responded with, thank you for being patient with me. This is one of my first deals. I was like, no problem. I was like, I will help as much as I can without putting my client at risk. You just need to call your broker. She's like, I can call my broker? You need to come to Keller Williams.
Oh, that's funny. And we had one gal, once again, names are changed to protect the innocent, but she was at a different company and she was calling the Keller Williams hotline. I guess because she knew that the brokers answered the phone. So completely different company calling our brokers. How about that?
And she called us twice.
Yeah.
Yes, until we got through that. No, we don't answer questions. We are solely for your benefit at Keller Williams.
So does anyone have anything that they want to discuss or have any questions, anything that they're having problems with? Larry,
Yeah.
you're grinning.
Yeah, when you close out your MLS, the selling agent is actually the buyer's agent.
Yeah. Yay, Larry.
Now I'm in the middle of having to do the form that you have to, the status change report with everybody's signatures on it in order to make sure that the list or the selling agent, the buyer's agent, is on there instead of me, because I accidentally put me on as the selling agent because I was the list agent.
Because you were representing the seller. I know.
Yeah, it's
Right?
you know,
They
it's
had
like,
the wrong word on there.
why don't they call that buyer's agent?
Oh, yeah. You're just, to let you know, you're not the only one. We've had to deal with that issue before, and very innocently, it had happened on multiple listings over an extended period of time. So we had to get it all taken care of, but we did.
And that's one of the cases where when it's closed, once a sale has closed, no adjustments can be made to the MLS unless it goes through the MLS.
Right.
It's a done deal. You can't change anything about that. So it makes it a little bit more cumbersome to make the changes.
Right. And so it's important that we do get it correct the first time, because we can't go back, like Wendy said. So that's one of the things that we learn. Good afternoon, Michelle. Did you have anything you wanted to share with us today? Any questions or?
No, not at all. I just realized it was after 1:30 and wanted to check in to see how these things went.
Well, it's sort of an open forum to see, to answer questions for agents that they might have. And sometimes it'll be Lisa, sometimes it'll be Wendy or I or both. And so we just want to be here for the agents that might have questions or concerns about anything. So.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
I was saying, no, I don't have anything at the moment, so I'll start keeping track so that I can just join on and ask those questions when this comes up.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Nancy, I do have a new one for me.
Okay.
I had written an offer and delivered it on a property that was getting a lot of activity, and all I got back, nothing on paper, was a text saying, "Thank you for your offer, but the seller has taken and has agreed to accept another offer." So in .loop, or in what will be command, you still have to put some like a letter of explanation or something like that, showing or explaining what happened or why the file or the offer basically just expired at the time that they, your request by date or whatever. Don't you still need something in the .loop after that?
Well, .loop is very, very different from command. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't even know command yet. And here we are going to be shifting over to it. But in .loop, what the protocol is supposed to be, and it has nothing to do with .loop, is that the seller initials the page 10 of the contract where it says seller rejected. And that way you have something to show that the seller actually got to see the offer. But it doesn't seem to be that is always the case. But that's the correct way to get a rejection.
And then Nancy, it does need to be turned in, correct? We still need to turn in those rejected offers?
Absolutely. And the only thing you actually need to turn in is the contract itself. You don't have to turn in all the ancillary documents and the buyer representation documents and all of that. We just, it's just a requirement for the broker to have that offer on hand.
Gotcha.
So, And what we recommend is when you're working with a buyer and trying to identify a property, you might go through 2 or 3 offers before you actually get one that sticks. So you can make a loop with your buyer's name, and then whatever rejected offers wind up, happening with that one buyer can be in the same loop and just rejected, rejected, rejected. You don't
Right.
have to create a whole new loop every
Yes.
time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
That's
then,
true.
yeah, when you finally get one that sticks, then you rename your loop for the address. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
Well, yeah, what I have in there now is I've got a folder with the disclosures in it because I know this person's going to make another offer on another property.
Uh-huh.
And then I have the rejected folder that has all the documentation and paperwork in it that was produced. But again, the caveat here is that I just got no response. So technically, I guess the agent on the other end is saying, well, you had your respond by time and that offer basically dies or expires at that time. So I just wrote a letter of explanation and put a picture of the text message that was on my phone showing the agent's phone number. Thank you for your offer, but the buyer has accepted another offer. So I put that on there in the letter. So it's kind of proof that that's how they handled it.
Okay, and that's fine.
Okay, and then I submitted that folder for broker review because you guys have to sign off on that, right?
Yeah, all we have to do is, if it's a rejected offer, we just have to change. I always open the contract just to make sure that, what we're looking at, but we just change the status to, rejected offer. We don't have to go through a lengthy review if it's not a deal. So,
Okay. So
but
something
you
that
can submit it.
expires, so something that expires like that is technically rejected, not expired.
That would be considered a rejected offer, yeah, and we're required to keep those for a year on file. And I will tell you, 99% of the agents do not have their client sign on page 10 where it says this offer's been rejected. And the only time that really becomes a problem is if you have a buyer who says, hey, I want proof that this was presented to the seller, because that's what that is your proof. If you're like the seller's agent, there's my proof that I presented this. They saw this whole thing. And it's a step that so many agents miss, and there's no reason for it. It's right there on page 10. It's easy to get your client to initial the seller to get.
Well, that would be agents just shortcutting the process is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to deal with that. Let's move on to a deal where I'm making money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to tell you how crazy the situation is that we're in. We just wrote an offer on a house where there are 18 other offers on the house.
Wow.
18. Yeah. It's just crazy out there right now. It's just crazy. I can't believe how fast and all the multiple offers. It's busier now than it was before COVID.
And what price point is that at, Michelle?
It's 200, that
Yeah.
one. It's near the
That's
U of
what I'm
A.
hearing.
That's
Yeah.
the magic
Yeah.
number.
But it's
200
really not even just that number. I mean, I have 400s, 500s, up to 800s, and they're all getting multiple offers and selling in the first couple of days. It's just crazy out there right now. Totally reminds me of 2006 when we were writing offers and having them sign a blank contract for us to fill in later with their approval. It is insane for me right now. I just can't believe it. Anyway, head share. 18 offers. I've never in 20 years seen 18 offers on a house.
That's a lot.
It
Yeah,
is.
I was sharing with the other, on one of the other Zooms here a day or so ago. I had an agent, we were out for a client, we were out first day of the listing, 16 showings, 5 offers, was in contract by the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I was interested. I think I had a buyer interested in that one. I remember that same scenario. They had like,
It was
Was
the
that
one on
yesterday?
Poppy. It was
that
one on
yesterday?
Poppy off the Seneca.
no, that wasn't it.
Yeah,
Crazy.
another one.
Sounds like this is playing itself out all across the city because the scenarios sound the same.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, my client had 17 properties that they were interested in looking at, and over the course of 5 days, 9 of them went into contract.
For sure. You know, it's funny when you have out-of-state buyers planning a trip to come into town and they send you their list of homes like a week in advance. And I'm like, there's no point.
Yeah.
I'll hold on to them, but they're all going to be gone by the time you come out here.
Yeah.
So,
And that's so frustrating for the buyers
Oh,
know,
it did very much. Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a reality in the market sometimes.
Once they lose a couple of them, they realize the urgency.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So did most of you hear the team meeting yesterday regarding the stats that shared with us? That was interesting, wasn't it?
I came in late today. No.
All right, Wendy, I'm going to let you take over for a second.
Oh, wait a minute. This is my first week. I don't get to run anything ever, at least for the first month. Yeah, the stats were interesting. They're a little bit lagging because they were April stats, and it's going to be what was interesting is somebody brought up the idea, and Dan, you were in that meeting, that those April closings were really stuff that went under contract maybe February-ish, you know, and beginning of March before it all got a little crazy. So what's really going to be interesting is seeing what May stats have to tell us, because May would reflect what happened March, April. And so that'll be interesting to see. But I think we had a bunch of pent up demand. People pulled back because they got scared, but the drive for, you know, people are moving to town. They have to have a house. You know, their life situations are changing, and COVID didn't make a difference with that. So they may have held back a little bit, but now they're out in full force trying to find the right place along with everybody else.
I didn't see the class, but I guess I was curious from over last month if we finally saw more sellers listing once we got the kind of, I guess, partial lifting of the restrictions. Did we see an increase in listings from last month?
Well, the stats for May aren't out yet, of course. So that's what
Oh yeah, but for April.
for April we were. That's when
we were under lockdown.
Yeah, and so everything was down double digits, but
Okay.
May will be out mid-June.
Right.
So we'll see that then. But
I'm hardly keeping track of the calendar these days.
What day?
I thought today was Tuesday. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
One of the comments made though by Jay was that even though the MLS stats showed double-digit drops year over year, Keller Williams showed a good-sized increase. So
I think I saw
the
that.
question is, what is it we are doing that the rest of the town, the other brokerages aren't, or what are our agents implementing that other agents aren't? And so it was a good thing. It was a good talking point, good thing to think about. But I think overall the consensus was that our agents are just, they're keeping busy by keeping engaged. They've got, you know, there's plenty of training out there for them. There's, Dan, you can probably tell what all the different things are there are for agents to tune in first thing in the morning. I forget what you guys call it, but there's, you know, there's places and things for the agents to be engaged. And so
Well, 8 o'clock every morning. Every
Yeah.
morning, 8 o'clock.
So
So
I think that does help, because sometimes when things go like with this COVID-19 event, it's easy to hide. It's easy to just kind of shut down. And so by not doing that, by keeping busy and calling your sphere and checking in with them, you keep your business running. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'm going to take off.
All right.
You guys have a great rest of the day, and I'll try to make the next one.
All right.
And
Well, thanks for tuning in. And, you know, we'll probably wrap this one up early if no one has any other questions or anything.
Okay.
Nice to see
you guys
you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
So Nancy,
Yes.
last
Robin.
week, hi. We talked about the Facebook ads and that I had permission from Lennar to advertise a spec home. And you just asked me, and I got nervous, like, is she able to give me permission? So I went and I asked her, and she's an assistant broker for Lennar. So she is a broker and sales manager. So that should be enough permission for me to advertise one of her spec homes, yes?
I would think so,
Okay.
but I would get it in writing.
So, I have it in writing from her, but it doesn't say like I have the authority, or I don't know, maybe I need to have her write something like that as a broker.
She just needs to grant permission.
Okay, so she did do that.
Yeah, if she granted you the permission to advertise their properties that you do not have listed,
Right.
then as long as you have that permission from the broker, then you should be okay.
Okay. Good.
Would you agree with that, Wendy?
Yeah, we need permission. If you're putting that out on Facebook, Nancy, isn't there about the rule that we have to say who the house is listed with? So we need to make sure that we're clear on that when you're posting that. It can't even appear to be yours. So yeah, just in little print down at the bottom.
Yeah,
who the listing agent is?
The listing brokerage. You don't have to do the listing agent, who the listing brokerage is. So in that case, that brokerage is Lennar Homes is the brokerage. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Quiet bunch today.
I know. Yes, last week they had a lot more questions. So I guess everybody's not having any issues right now.
Yeah, they're all busy selling.
Well, that's good. Hope you're very quiet today.
You're right. I guess I am.
Did you have anything that you wanted to talk about, or any questions, issues?
One of my closings is delayed, and I did have a question, I suppose, about they received the seller packet back on May 14th, and I'm not used to working with this particular title company, and I tried to stay in touch, but their main person is out of town, so it's been pushed back twice. And I guess I just wonder, had I missed a step? Because the seller packet got turned in, but they're struggling with the payoff. And the latest trend they're saying is not only are they working from home, which has caused a bit of a disconnect at the title company, but they're having a hard time getting the mortgage people to give information to a third-party person. So I just didn't know if that was a trend all the way around, or if you'd heard that.
Well, that's interesting. Normally what happens is escrow will get in the initial package that goes out to the seller will give permission to escrow to obtain the information from their lender for the payoff. Right. So if the seller filled out that initial packet, escrow had authority to get that information. If they didn't have that previously, they would have sent an authorization letter with the closing package. I take it they're out of town or out of state.
My particular clients are in town.
They're in, okay.
They dropped physically off at the address.
Okay, so I honestly don't know what the holdup would be, but escrow is authorized. I mean, they make sure of that so that they can get that payoff information.
The latest is they had my client call again and have it faxed as of today. So I don't know if it's, and I'm sorry to trouble the group with it, but I thought that was awkward. That's the first time I had heard of that. They're putting it back on my client, the seller, to get a faxed copy of the payoff.
Wow,
Interesting.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh.
So
So how's the buyer holding up? They're sitting in the wings waiting on the closing?
well, technically the closing is tomorrow. It was originally the 22nd, pushed it to the 27th, pushed it again to the 29th tomorrow. Docs were supposed to be signed this morning, but they didn't have the payoff. So the buyer agent is concerned now about the lending rate, the percent, of interest. So
Their rate lock, yeah.
yeah. So he was supposed to call the main escrow officer who's out of town. So I think they're struggling, all of them, but we have a closing. We have clients that we need help.
Yeah.
And what escrow company did you say that was?
It's title agency. I'm sorry, guys, I don't have it right in front of me.
Oh.
I don't know if I should say the name of the escrow officer, but yeah.
No, I was just wondering about is the company a local company?
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay. I hadn't heard of anybody having those kinds of struggles, I've heard of them being lined up in the parking lot waiting to sign, but not that struggle.
Yeah.
Well, lucky me. Okay. Well, maybe we'll get through it, and I'll stay in touch. I've been in touch with Big Dan as things come up, and but yeah, it'll get different if we have to push back the date again, and if we're looking at some lending components for the buy side. So sorry, but I mean, just in case it happens to somebody else, I guess it'd be good to know how we can best move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That I've never heard of that happening. So I'm wondering if if it was like a private lender rather than one of the, like a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America or something like that, because I've never heard of that happening with,
It is that I haven't heard of. It's one I haven't heard of.
Okay.
So I don't believe they're in town.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, how do you follow that one? So, okay. Thank
Oh.
Well, I just want to tell you all that I am working inside dotloop for compliance, doing contract review, and I potentially will make an error or two as I learn your system and your software. So if I do something odd and weird and you're like, who is this new chick and has she lost her mind? Just shout out to me and we'll figure it out. It's probably more me having issues around how to navigate through the software than anything, but just give me a shout out and we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, it's not a super user friendly system. So, and you're doing great, Wendy, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hey, quick question. Is my background backwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
You are one or the other.
You're funny now.
Well, if there aren't any more questions or discussions, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. But I'm glad that you all joined in. It's always nice to hear what's going on in your world, and we'd love to, get your questions. And of course, if something comes up when we're not on here, you can always call the broker hotline. So we appreciate you guys. We understand you're going through a lot, and we're there to back you every step of the way.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys later.